Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make the Oglala Pendant. This is Janet Palumbo with 2 beads are better than 1. To make the Oglala Pendant, get your materials ready. You'll need 3 colors of size 11 Japanese seed beads, colors A, B, and C, and 12 6mm fire polished crystals. Color A is a matte color. Color B should be the lighter colored contrast, either a silver-lined crystal or copper-lined opal. And color C is your bright metallic color. You'll also need a 10-foot length of fire line thread. To start your Oglala pendant, you need size 11 seed beads and 6mm fire polished. Also, your thread, 10 feet of thread with 5.5 feet wound on the bobbin and 4.5 feet of working thread. Measure your thread to make sure that's that size. Then you're going to pick up 1A, a fire polish, and 1A. Slide them down until they're about 1 inch from the bobbin so that you give yourself a little bit of room to work. You're going to skip the A and pass back through the fire polish bead. This will capture the A on the end of the bead. Then you're going to pass through the first A again, but the direction is important. So notice the direction the tail thread is coming from and pass through it in that same direction. That way your tail thread is exiting one end of that first A and the working thread is exiting the other end of the first A. There's the tail thread, there's the working thread. With the thread exiting one end, the A at one end of your fire polish bead, pick up 8A, there's 8, and pass through the A at the other end of the fire polish bead. This will make a little arc of seed beads around one side of the fire polished bead. Step 2. String 6A and 1D. Now you want to pass through the 4th A from the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pass through just that 4th bead. Pull it tight. And then pass back through the fire polish bead. Pull that tightly. And then you need to pass back through the last A, and you want to have the thread facing out of the beadwork. So you might want to flip it over and pass through it. There you have 2 fire polish beads, and the thread is coming out of the last A. For step 3, you're simply going to repeat step 2 4 more times. So you're going to pick up 6A and 1D. You're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 and pass through the 4th bead from the end. Pull that tight. Then pass back through the fire polish. Pull that tight, and then pass through the last A so that the thread is facing out. Here's the second repeat, picking up 6A and 1D, pass through the 4th A from the end, pass back through the fire polish, and then pass through the last A so that the thread is facing out. Now you have 4 crystals. To add the 5th crystal, pick up 6A and 1 crystal, pass through the 4th bead from the end, pass back through the crystal, and then if you want to flip it over and pass through the last A so that the thread is exiting outwards. To pick up the 6th crystal, pick up 6A and 1D, pass through the 4th bead from the end, pass back through the crystal. Actually, fire polish crystals aren't true crystal, but they are called fire polish crystals. And then pass through the last A so that the thread is exiting outwards from the beadwork. Now you have a chain with 6 fire polish crystals, and we're ready to begin step 4, where we start to increase the number of seed beads. So instead of picking up 6A, you're going to pick up 7. There's 7A and 1 crystal. Pass back through the 4th A from the end. Pass back through the crystal. And pass through the last A with the thread exiting out. Now you're ready for step 5. Pick up 8A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1D. And the procedure's the same, it's just the number of seed beads that you're picking up that changes. So you're still going to pass through the 4th A from the end, and back through the crystal, and through that last A. Step 6, we're adding the 9th crystal, and we pick up 9A. And 1 crystal. Pass through the 4th A from the end. Pass back through the crystal. Pull everything tight and pass through the last A. For step 7, we're going to pick up 10A. There's 5. There's 5 more. And the 10th crystal. We're going to pass through the 4th A from the end. Pass back through the crystal. Oops, just the crystal. See, the first time my needle went through that first A, but it would be going in the wrong direction. I want to make sure to pass through that last A in the right direction. Now for step 8, we're going to pick up 11A. And one crystal. These increases will make the pendant wider at the bottom. Pass through the 4th A from the end. Pass back through the crystal. And then pass through the last A. Step 9, we're going to pick up the last crystal. So we pick up 12A. There's 6. And 6 more. And the last crystal. Pass through the 4th A from the end. Then pass back through the crystal and through the last A. Now we have our chain with all 12 crystals in place. And it gets gradually wider at the end. Now to finish the base row, you want to pick up 8A. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And instead of passing through the 4th bead from the end, you want to pass from the 4th bead from the top of the last crystal. So count 4 back from the top of the last crystal and pass through that bead. Now you have an arc of seed beads on either side of the last crystal, and pass back through the last A just added. And pull that tight. Now you're ready for row 1 of the Oglala stitch. Oglala stitch is a type of netting. So you're going to pick up 3A and you're going to skip the next 2A in the base row and pass through the 3rd bead. So skip 2, pass through the 3rd one. Now you have the 3 beads that you just picked up, and they are over the 2 beads that you skipped. You're going to continue to do this until you reach just below the 4th fire polish crystal. So pick up 3, skip 2, and pass through the 3rd bead all the way along the base row. And try to keep all of these groups of 3 on top. This is going to be the right side of the pendant. Here's the 4th crystal. So your last stitch, you pick up 3 and you pass through the A that is 2 beads before the bottom of the 4th crystal. And that's where you stop row 1. For row 2, you're going to pick up 5 of the B color. That is either your silver-lined crystal or copper-lined opal. And you're going to pass through the middle of the 3 A beads that you picked up in row 1. So now you've made an arc of 5 beads, and it's passing through the middle bead of the group of 3 in row 1. Repeat this all the way along. Pick up 5B and pass through the middle of the 3A in row 1 until you get to the bottom of the pendant. Now I've finished row 2 and I'm ready to start row 3 of the Oglala stitch. The last stitch in row 2 goes through the 3A from row 1 at the very bottom of the pendant. So for row 3, pick up 7B and pass through the middle of the 5B in row 2. That'll be the 3rd bead. That's the middle of the 5. Pull that tight and then repeat. Pick up 7 and pass through the middle of the next group of 5, the 3rd bead in the next group of 5. So now row 3 is complete, and you can see all of the ruffles are on top of the base row. Now we're ready to end this thread, and to do that I'm going to make a couple of half hitch knots in between the beads. So I'm passing into that space between the beads, making 2 half hitch knots, pulling those knots in between the beads. Then pass through a couple of beads and repeat. So I've passed through a couple of beads and I'm going to make 2 more half hitch knots. And then I'll trim the thread. And because the knots are in between the beads, they get pulled in between the beads, you'll never see them. Now I'm ready to make the bail. I've removed the tail thread from the bobbin, and we're done with the bobbin, and I've put the needle on the tail thread. I'm going to roll the work over to the back side and count 12, 11, 10, 9. In between crystals 9 and 10, there are 2 beads. I'm going to fold crystal 1 so that it's on top of crystal 9 and pass through the 2 beads in the base row that are in between crystals 9 and 10. Then pass back through the first 2A in the pendant. That is the first 2A above crystal number 1. To reinforce, I'm going to repeat the thread path. That is, pass through those 2A that are between crystals 9 and 10 again. And then pass through the first 2A again, the ones that are above crystal number 1. Now you've created a loop that'll serve as the bail. Pass through crystal number 1 and the A that is directly above it. Now we're going to add a little bit of row 1 to the bail. So pick up 3A, skip 2, and pass through the 3rd A in the base row. And repeat this a few more times until you reach the point where rows 2 and 3 begin. So you're going to continue until you reach that point there. Once you've completed the bail, you're ready to start row 4, which uses color C beads. These are the metallic beads. So pick up 9C and pass through the middle bead in row 3. That'll be the 4th bead of the 7 in row 3. You have an arc of 9 metallic beads. Pick up another 9 and pass through the middle bead in the next group of 7 in row 3. And repeat this to complete row 4. I've completed row 4 all the way to the base of the pendant. My last group of 9 C beads is stitched through the middle of the last group in row 3. I've got a loop of beads that will be the bail, and now I'm ready to do row 5, the last row, in which we'll create picots of beads. So to do that, pick up 3C. The first picot you're going to just pass back through the last 3C in row 4. And when you pull that tight, you'll have made a little picot of 3 beads at the end. Now pick up 3C and pass back through the same bead that your thread is exiting. This will create a little circle of beads around that bead in the base row. And tighten that up. And then you're going to pass through the next 3 beads in the base row. 1, 2, 3. Pass through those. Now you're ready to make the next picot. Pick up 3C and pass through the bead that the thread is exiting and the next 3C. You can do it in 1 stitch or 2, whatever is comfortable for you. There's the picot. Again, pick up 3C, pass through the bead that the thread is exiting, and the next 3C. You'll notice that there's a B bead from row 3, a connector bead, and we're going to pass through that bead every time, but we don't count it. So I've made my 3 bead picot. I passed through the bead the thread was exiting. I passed through that connector bead and then through the next 3C. And here the picots are all complete. This is the last row in the pendant. All we need to do is trim the thread and put the pendant on our rope necklace. So I've passed through the beadwork and I've made half-hitch knots a couple of times in between the beads, and now I'm ready to end the thread. I'm going to use a thread burner. It cuts the thread about 2 or 3 millimeters from the end, and then I melt that little 2 millimeter stub, and that seals the knot at the end. And I'm ready to slide the pendant onto the Russian spiral rope necklace. It fits very easily over either end of the necklace. So just slip it through the bail and slide it to the center. And you're ready to wear it. I hope you've enjoyed making it.